It has been more than 40 years since the A-Team first hit the airwaves, but hardly anyone remembers the prank one actor pulled on his own director in the middle of filming, the sergeant who almost lost the role of his life before the show even started, or the real first name of a pilot the series never once dared to reveal. Back in the 1980s, this crew of mercenaries turned every single week into a parade of explosions, sharp one-liners, and flying vans, and honestly, we could not look away. But behind those chases and unforgettable catchphrases was a behind-the-scenes story every bit as wild as anything that made it to air. Last-minute recasting, a secret wink to another cult favorite hiding in plain sight, a launch tied to the single biggest night on American television, and a rivalry backstage that nobody expected between two guys who were supposed to be a team. So, buckle up, because today we are counting down 15 weird facts about the A-Team that you probably never knew, and trust me, fact number 1 will change the way you look at every scene Hannibal and B.A. Baracus shared together. We are talking last-minute recast decisions, a hidden nod to a completely different cult favorite, a genuinely tense off-camera rivalry, and one music video you have to see to believe. Before we get into it, do not forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell, because this list is loaded with surprises that even the most obsessive fans of the show rarely know all at once. As a certain sergeant would say, do not make me get mad, so do not miss a single second of this one. Number 15. The show basically launched on the biggest night of the American television calendar. Here is a fact that most casual fans have completely forgotten. The A-Team was not just another new show, quietly slipped into the fall lineup like dozens of other freshman series that season. The 2-hour pilot movie, Mexican Sleigh Ride, did premiere on its own the week before, on January 23, 1983. But the show's first regular episode landed in one of the most valuable time slots television has ever handed out, airing immediately after Super Bowl the 17th. Which the Washington Redskins won over the Miami Dolphins at the Rose Bowl on January 30th of that same year. NBC was betting that the enormous football audience would simply stay tuned in once the game ended, and the strategy worked so well that it helped establish the now familiar tradition of networks using the Super Bowl as a launching pad for their biggest new shows. A tradition that later gave us premieres for everything from Airwolf to The Wonder Years to Undercover Boss. And here is the detail almost nobody remembers. To help hype the new series, Mr. T himself showed up in person at the Super Bowl that year, appearing at the game as a walking advertisement for the show that would debut right after the final whistle, chains, mohawk, and all, in front of a stadium full of football fans who had no idea what they were about to be sold. Within its first week, the A-Team landed 4th out of 67 shows on the air that week, a launch boost most freshman television series could only dream about, especially with rival networks running reruns and unremarkable competition against it that same night. So the next time somebody tells you a show came out of nowhere, remember that this one basically rode in on the shoulders of the single biggest sporting event in America. Now, let us get into the rest of the list. Number 14. The first face was not Dirk Benedict. Before Dirk Benedict flashed that signature grin as Lieutenant Templeton, Faceman, Peck, the role belonged, if only for one outing, to a completely different actor. His name was Tim Dunnigan, and he played Face in the show's 2-hour pilot movie, which aired in January of 1983. But NBC executives watched the finished footage and hit the brakes almost immediately. The issue, as explained at the time, was that Dunnigan looked far too young, and on top of that, far too tall next to the rest of the cast to be believable as a veteran of the Vietnam War, a war that, as Dunnigan himself later pointed out, had actually ended while he was still in high school. Since the entire premise of the show revolved around soldiers wrongly convicted of a crime they did not commit during that very war, this detail mattered more than it might sound. What makes the story even better is that the show's own creators, Stephen J. Cannell and Frank Lupo, had wanted Dirk Benedict for the role from the very beginning, and it was the network that overruled them and forced an audition with someone else first, before eventually admitting the creators had been right all along. So after just a single appearance, Dunnigan was out, and in came Dirk Benedict, fresh off playing Lieutenant Starbuck on the science fiction series Battlestar Galactica. Charming, the right age, and carrying exactly the right amount of swagger, Benedict slid into the role as though he had spent his whole life conning colonels and sweet-talking secretaries, a con man who could talk his way into a helicopter, a tuxedo, or a hotel suite with equal ease. The strangest part of the whole switch is that it was never once explained inside the show itself. One episode, the actor was Dunnigan. The next, it was Benedict, with no flashback, no line of dialogue, no acknowledgement in the script whatsoever. Just a brand new face, the same salesman's smile, and an audience that accepted it without asking too many questions, the way only 1980s network television could get away with. Number 13. That robot in the opening credits is not a mistake. If you ever paid close attention to the opening title sequence, you might have noticed something strange walking behind Face. A shiny metallic figure with a single red eye sweeping back and forth across its visor. A costume most casual viewers would never think twice about. That is not a forgotten prop left over from another set. That is quite literally a Cylon, the robotic villain from an entirely different Universal production, Battlestar Galactica. And that is no coincidence, since Dirk Benedict had played Lieutenant Starbuck on that exact show before becoming Face. While filming the second season episode titled Steel, Benedict happened to spot an actor in a Cylon costume walking across the Universal Studios lot as part of the guided tram tours given to tourists at the theme park. Instead of letting the moment pass, Benedict had an idea. He pitched the director on letting the Cylon walk directly behind him during one of the scenes, while his character turned his head with a look that said, "Don't I know you from somewhere?" The director agreed, more as an inside joke for the crew than as a serious creative choice, and the shot turned out so well that producers eventually worked it into the opening credits for the seasons that followed. For years, plenty of viewers never even noticed. It was not until home video and frame-by-frame rewatching became possible that the reference turned into one of the most beloved hidden gems of 1980s television, quietly passed around by fans long before anyone had a word like Easter egg to describe it. Proof that sometimes the best inside joke on a show takes years to actually land. Number 12. That black van was actually 8 different vans. The iconic 1983 GMC Vandura, with its red stripe and turbine-style wheels, is basically the 5th unofficial member of the team. Never credited, never interviewed, but instantly recognizable to anyone who grew up watching the show. But contrary to what almost everyone remembers, there was never just one original van. The production relied on an entire fleet of nearly identical vehicles to cover every need on set. One pristine unit reserved purely for close-ups and hero shots, and several additional units built for stunt work, chase sequences, and crashes. And here is another detail that surprises a lot of people. The top of the van was never fully black. It actually had a metallic gray tone, though the mistake got repeated so often over the years that even toy companies ended up painting their miniatures the wrong color. Continuity between the various vans was, according to people who worked on the production, a constant headache for the crew, with small details shifting from shot to shot, like a sunroof that would appear in one scene and vanish in the next, depending on which vehicle happened to be in front of the camera. Whenever a van needed to be destroyed on screen, the crew sometimes swapped in an entirely different body style, repainted and dressed up to pass for the original. What started as a behind-the-scenes headache eventually turned into a genuine merchandising goldmine. Hot Wheels released its own miniature version, Lego put out a buildable set inspired by the vehicle, and it was not long before remote control replicas, lunchboxes, posters, and even collector's box sets package inside a scale replica of the van hit store shelves. By the time production wrapped, several of the original vans had already been destroyed across various action scenes over the years, and only a handful of surviving examples remain today in the hands of private collectors who treat them almost like museum pieces, the same way other collectors might treasure a piece of movie star memorabilia. Sometimes the real star of a show is not a person at all. It is 4 wheels, a red stripe, and a whole lot of attitude, not a leading man in a tailored suit. Number 11. Murdoch almost never made it onto the show at all. The character of H.M. Murdoch, played by Dwight Schultz, was never a safe bet for the show's producers, not during casting, and not even after the entire first season had already aired to a national audience. At the time, Schultz was a largely unknown actor with no major roles to his name, and he showed up for the chemistry read, hardly anyone's favorite in the room, staying pretty much unnoticed until his audition ended up surprising everyone present. The producers needed someone who could be hilarious without becoming annoying, and unhinged without crossing into offensive for the family audience watching at home, and Schultz found exactly that balance with his version of a pilot who talked to an invisible dog and made sock puppets between missions. What started as a backup plan almost immediately became one of the most beloved characters on the entire show. The kind of happy accident that casting directors talk about for decades afterward. But the drama behind the scenes did not stop there. After the first season wrapped, some NBC executives decided Murdoch was simply too risky for a family-friendly primetime slot, and seriously discussed writing him out of the show completely. Test audiences, however, told a completely different story. Viewers did not see Murdoch as a problem to be fixed. They saw him as the emotional heart of the entire team. Faced with that kind of reaction, the network backed off fast. Good thing they did, because Murdoch would go on to become the show's secret weapon, or really its not-so-secret weapon, giving the A-Team a dose of strange energy that no other action show of that era could quite match, and helping the series stand out on a schedule crowded with far more conventional crime dramas. Number 10. Their guns were not nearly as automatic as they sounded. The team's signature weapon was the Ruger Mini 14, a solid semi-automatic rifle that was already sitting on gun store shelves across the country and ended up nearly as recognizable as the van itself. But here's the trick. On screen, that rifle sounded exactly like a full-blown machine gun, firing endless bursts second after second. The truth behind the camera was pure television sleight of hand. The Mini 14 only fires one round per trigger pull, so actors were simply told to pull that trigger as fast as they possibly could in front of the camera, while sound editors in post-production layered in fully automatic gunfire effects to sell the illusion of endless firepower. Why go through all that extra work? Because, simply put, it worked. The trick amplified the sense of action, gave every gunfight an unmistakable signature sound, and made the whole show feel bigger, louder, and more intense than what was actually happening during filming. Over the years, that particular sound of the A-Team gunfire became instantly recognizable to an entire generation of viewers. Final proof that sometimes all it takes is a fast trigger finger and clever sound design to turn an ordinary weapon into a genuine audio icon of television, no matter what was actually loaded in the chamber. Number 9. The show was considered too violent for the United Kingdom. Sounds strange, we know, especially coming from the same country that gave the world James Bond, but it is completely true. In the United States, the A-Team was the kind of television action an entire family could comfortably watch together on a Tuesday night. Non-stop explosions, wall-to-wall gunfights, and one golden rule handed down from NBC itself. Absolutely no confirmed on-screen deaths under any circumstances. Producers pushed that rule about as far as it could go. Cars flew through the air, entire buildings exploded into flames, bad guys got launched through burning windshields, calmly dusted off their jackets, and limped away. Basically like a Looney Tunes cartoon, only with machine guns thrown in, and somehow, all of that was perfectly acceptable to American audiences of the time. In the United Kingdom, though, the reaction from the public and from regulators was very different. British broadcasting regulators harshly criticized the show for glamorizing gun violence on screen, and several local stations found themselves pressured to push the broadcast to a later time slot, farther out of reach of younger kids. The controversy even made its way into the tabloids and into debates among British lawmakers, with some publicly questioning whether that much gunfire and that many explosions, however harmless within the story itself, really belonged in a family-friendly time slot. In the end, only the A-Team could level half a city without spilling a single drop of blood, and at the same time trigger a full-blown media meltdown on the other side of the Atlantic, all while American parents let their kids watch it without a second thought. Number 8. We will never know Murdoch's actual first name. Across all 5 seasons, we knew him as Murdoch, brilliant pilot, unpredictable wild card, and a devoted enthusiast of improvised sock puppets and imaginary friends of every possible variety. But here is the genuinely strange part. Throughout the entire original series, his full first name was never once revealed. Not in the scripts, not in the closing credits, not on a single piece of official merchandise from that era. He was simply Murdoch, with those two initials, H and M, left floating without explanation for all 5 years the original production ran. Only decades later, in expanded material released long after the classic series had ended, was he given the first name James, though that particular detail never became part of the strict canon of the original 1980s production. In a team full of fake aliases, invented backstories, and pasts rewritten for convenience, there is something almost poetic about the fact that the one genuine mystery of the entire cast turned out to be the real name of the man who flew helicopters like a master, talked to imaginary pets, and, by every indication, was probably hallucinating entire missions inside his own head. Maybe that unsolved mystery was the only correct way to leave him, without a birth certificate to spoil the fun, or explain away the character's endless string of contradictions. Number 7. The music that made you want to run through a wall was written by two genuine masters of television. That opening theme, the one that shot pure adrenaline through you the second the first notes hit, has a name attached to it, actually two. Mike Post and Pete Carpenter, the composing duo behind some of the most memorable theme songs in American television history. A pair of names most viewers never learned, even though they hummed their music constantly, including the opening credits for shows as popular as Magnum P.I. and Hill Street Blues, and who years later would also write the instantly recognizable opening theme for Law and Order, the same two-note sound that is still immediately recognizable today. When it came time to score the A-Team, the result was pure sonic magic, percussion that sounded like it was marching straight into battle, an instantly catchy melody, and that perfect blend of military swagger and Saturday morning fun. That music did not just introduce the show week after week, it set the tone for absolutely everything that followed, urgent, over the top, and just slightly ridiculous in the best possible way. It only took two notes for an entire generation of 1980s kids to feel ready to jump in a van and go save the day, even if that van never actually existed in their own driveway, and even if their own family car could not have outrun a mall cop, let alone a helicopter. Number 6. Mr. T released a full album about respecting your mother. While the A-Team was busy blowing up television sets on screen, Mr. T decided to blow up boomboxes off-screen with a music project that was part rap, part life coaching, and 100% pure Mr. T, aimed squarely at the same kids who tuned in every week to watch him drive that van. The result was an album titled Be Somebody, or Be Somebody's Fool, featuring the now legendary track Treat Your Mother Right, a spoken word rap laid over a gloriously cheesy 1980s beat that did exactly what the title promised. Here is the important part, though. It was not a joke, and it was not some cynical marketing gimmick either, even though a rapping television star could easily have been dismissed as exactly that. Mr. T genuinely believed in the message, and he used his sudden fame to promote respect, hard work, and family values to the kids who looked up to him from the screen every single week. This was not a cash grab in the slightest. It was more of a personal passion project wrapped in a few extra gold chains. The music video became a genuine cult classic over the years, filled with over-the-top sincerity and completely unforgettable visuals. The vocal chops may have left a little to be desired from a purely musical standpoint, but nobody could ever deny the sincere heart Mr. T poured into the whole project. Gold chains and all, long before self-improvement content was even a phrase anyone used. Number 5. Even Benny Hill dedicated an entire parody sketch to the show. Want to understand just how massive the A-Team was during the 1980s, on a scale most American shows never reach? Legendary British comedian Benny Hill devoted an entire sketch to parodying it on his own program, even though the two shows aired continents apart. Hill created what he called the B-Team, a full-blown storm of absurd physical comedy that spoofed every major character with the same slapstick style that made Hill himself famous across the United Kingdom, complete with his trademark chase scene fast-motion gags. The sketch featured Hill playing several characters at once, complete with exaggerated wigs, fake mustaches, and mock explosions that perfectly captured the spirit of both shows at the same time. What made the parody especially clever was how it highlighted exactly the kind of absurdity audiences had already learned to accept without question in the original show. Filtered through Hill's comic lens, the cartoonish violence and larger-than-life characters of the A-Team became even more obviously ridiculous, though always in the most affectionate way possible, never in a mean-spirited one. When a show becomes parody-worthy on both sides of the Atlantic at the same time, it has stopped being just television and become a full-blown worldwide pop culture phenomenon, the kind of cultural footprint most American exports never quite managed to leave behind. Number 4. One of the most famous lines in the show never actually appeared in the show. If you asked a random person on the street to quote a single line from the A-Team, odds are pretty good they would say something close to, "I pity the fool," a line so associated with the show that it shows up in trivia nights and internet lists to this day. That phrase became B.A. Baracus's calling card over the years, even though, and here is the twist, it never once appeared in a single episode of the actual series. That iconic line was actually born the year before, in 1982's Rocky III, where Mr. T delivered it while playing boxer Clubber Lang, with so much menace packed into his voice that it burned itself into pop culture history and into our collective memory forever. By the time the A-Team hit the air the following year, Mr. T was already a household name, and that line came pre-packaged right along with him, already an instant cultural icon before the television series had even officially started, which is exactly why so many fans still get the two mixed up decades later. Number 3. Why Mr. T stopped wearing his gold chains. Mr. T was not just a television star. He was a full-blown pop culture force in his own right. One of the most bankable faces in American merchandising at the time. The action series, his own animated cartoon, school lunchboxes, cereal boxes, motivational videos, special Saturday morning appearances. With his signature gold chains, his mohawk, and that unmistakable glare, he became one of the single most recognizable figures of the entire decade, instantly identifiable in silhouette alone to millions of American kids. Those chains were not just jewelry to him. They worked like a kind of personal armor, a symbol that screamed confidence, swagger, and strength. But in 2005, everything changed. After witnessing the devastation caused by Hurricane Katrina firsthand, Mr. T made a personal decision that surprised a lot of people at the time. He stopped wearing gold entirely. He explained publicly that it felt wrong to flaunt wealth, while so many people had just lost absolutely everything they had. He did not do it because anyone told him to. He did it because, in his own words, it no longer reflected his values. From that point forward, he wore red, white, and blue instead, as a way of representing something much bigger than himself: patriotism, humility, and purpose. Turns out the real Mr. T was not just iconic on the outside, he was deeply intentional on the inside too. And that personal choice might be one of the most powerful parts of his entire real legacy, far more lasting than any single piece of jewelry he ever wore on screen. Number 2. Season 5 tried to fix the ratings and ended up breaking the whole show instead. By Season 4, ratings for the A-Team were sliding against tough Tuesday night competition, and NBC, in full panic mode, decided to give the show a complete makeover, rather than let it fade away quietly. In Season 5, the team was finally caught by the authorities after 4 full seasons on the run. But instead of facing the court-martial everyone expected, they got recruited by a mysterious figure from American intelligence, retired General Hunt Stockwell, played by none other than screen veteran Robert Vaughn, well known for his role as Napoleon Solo on the classic spy series The Man from UNCLE. Suddenly, the entire original premise of wrongly pursued mercenaries got shelved completely, replaced with Black Ops missions and high-level international espionage. American viewers who recognized Vaughn from his 4 seasons as Solo, or from his earlier turn as one of the gunslingers in the original 1960 Western The Magnificent Seven, instantly understood the show had swapped genres on them without so much as a warning. 2 brand new characters were added: Frankie Dishpan Santana, a special effects expert of Puerto Rican descent, played by actor Eddie Velez, and General Stockwell himself, now serving as the team's new secretive handler. All of the lighthearted, colorful chaos of earlier seasons disappeared completely. replaced with government contracts, espionage subplots, and a much darker, more serious overall tone. Honestly, it felt like a completely different show wearing the A-Team's old clothes. Fans who loved the original formula of wrongly accused veterans helping regular people simply could not connect with this new direction. The chemistry between characters visibly broke down, the ratings kept sliding with no end in sight, and Season 5 became a textbook example of how a desperate attempt to fix a hit show can sometimes destroy exactly what made it great in the first place. A lesson network executives would relearn with plenty of other shows in the decades that followed. Number 1. The real off-screen tension almost nobody saw coming. On-screen, Hannibal and B.A. Baracus were brothers in arms, inseparable, absolutely loyal to each other right up through the end of every single mission, ready to lay down their lives for one another without a second thought. The kind of bond the show sold week after week to millions of American living rooms. Off-screen, the real relationship between George Peppard and Mr. T was far less harmonious than anyone might have guessed. Peppard came straight out of old-school Hollywood, classically trained, deadly serious about his craft, and used to being the biggest name in the room after decades of a career that already included films like Breakfast at Tiffany's and the racing drama Grand Prix, a resume that made him one of the most established leading men on the entire lot. He expected at minimum discipline, a clear hierarchy, and genuine respect from the people he worked alongside. Then came Mr. T, a complete pop culture tidal wave with his gold chains, his overwhelming charisma, and catchphrases that went viral almost overnight, long before that word even existed in common use. He became famous practically overnight, and his larger-than-life presence quickly began overshadowing the rest of the cast, including, quite pointedly, Peppard himself. That, understandably, did not sit well with him at all. And to be completely fair, Mr. T was not the only person Peppard clashed with on set. According to various sources from the era, he also had ongoing friction with several of the leading actresses who rotated through the show across its run, to the point where more than a few people on the production started wondering whether the real common denominator in all of it was simply George himself. Either way, it is said that Peppard deeply resented the media attention Mr. T was getting, especially given that Mr. T had no formal acting training whatsoever, having come to Hollywood by way of bodyguard work and professional wrestling rather than any acting conservatory. Mr. T, for his part, was not exactly thrilled with the old Hollywood pecking order either, or with the inflated egos that tended to come along with it. Writers and directors gradually trimmed down the scenes the two characters shared together as the real tension behind the scenes became harder and harder for the whole crew to ignore. If you pay close attention, you will notice Hannibal and Bea Baracus rarely exchange any truly meaningful dialogue with each other, especially in the show's later seasons. And yet, you would never know it just from watching the episodes. That is a genuine credit to both actors' professionalism individually and to an editing team that managed to make something practically unbearable behind the scenes look completely effortless on screen week after week. Two men who needed each other on camera to make the plan come together every single week, and who off camera could barely walk down the same studio hallway without the air turning tense. Two professionals faking a brotherhood in front of the camera that they genuinely did not feel behind it. Bonus fact before we wrap things up, since we promised you one more before the credits roll. Not every relationship on set was built on tension, friction, and clashing egos. While Hannibal and B.A. Baracus barely tolerated each other off camera, Face and Murdoch built exactly the opposite kind of relationship. Dirk, Benedict, and Dwight Schultz became genuine friends during filming, and that real, lasting friendship, according to people who worked closely with them, stuck around for a long time after the A-Team finally left the air for good. Reportedly, that authentic chemistry between the two actors bled directly onto the screen, episode after episode, and a lot of the natural chemistry we saw between Face and Murdoch was not really acting at all. It was simply two real friends having a genuinely good time in front of the camera, week after week, across all 5 seasons. Maybe that is exactly why, for so many fans, the friendship between Face and Murdoch always felt just a little more real and a little warmer than anything else on the team, and their scenes together still hold up as some of the most fondly remembered moments of the entire run. And there you have it, 15 weird facts about the A-Team, a show that turned 4 wrongly accused soldiers and one very unlucky van into a full-blown American institution. How many of these did you already know? And which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments which of these 15 facts you had absolutely no idea about before watching this video, and which one you already knew by heart. Do not forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you do not miss the next deep dive into the classic shows that shaped our childhoods. Whether you originally caught them live on network television, taped them off the air on VHS, or discovered them years later during some nostalgic weekend binge. And if you know somebody who still swears "I pity the fool" was actually said on the show itself, this is the perfect excuse to tag them in the comments below and watch them argue about it anyway. See you in the next one, and as a certain cigar-chomping colonel would say, I love it when a plan comes together, and this one, 15 Facts Deep, finally has.